No. Call this meeting to order at 6:02 and we'll stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Move.
Thank you, Jason. Second, Tegan. Any additions, discussions? Okay, all in favor of accepting the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Rufus, were you an aye?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to approval of the minutes for October 16th. Have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second? Thank you, Casey. Any additions or corrections? No. Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. I don't have any correspondence to share at this time, and tax collector, can you get a report from the tax collector? No,
I didn't see
Yes, sir.
no, I didn't see.
Well, I think she said at the last meeting there wasn't gonna be anything, if I remember.
Not recall.
Okay, no report from the tax collector. Jen?
Hi,
Thank you for
everybody.
being here.
The only thing I want to share, Nancy, is that I want to make sure everybody's aware that the Board of Education has decided not to take the additional funds that we could statutorily take from the previous year's fiscal budget, that 2% that the state recently passed. We chose not to do that. So I wanted to make sure that that news had gotten back to you guys.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment just while we're on
Yes.
this topic? In the future, that information needs to be shared a lot earlier in the fiscal year. The audit is 98% done, so even if you had tried to exercise that right at this point, it would have been very difficult to do. I need to have that decision reported to my office no later than the end of September going forward.
Okay, I'll have to look at, this was new this year, so
Yeah.
I can't even, I feel like we didn't even know about it until late August, but I have to go back and look. I could be off on those dates, so understood. And
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to put it
Yeah.
out there so that there's plenty of forewarning.
Okay,
You got
Okay.
10 months, so.
yeah, understood. And listen, the reason, I think it's important that we just have a quick dialogue about the rationale from our perspective on that. We feel, the Board of Education feels that in the event that we ever felt that we needed to exercise that right, we wanted to do that in conjunction with the Board of Finance. And so, I want to be clear that we're not necessarily saying that we will never want to take that opportunity, but we wouldn't do it without having a discussion with the Board of Finance, because we feel that that's the right step to take.
Terrific, thank you.
We appreciate it. Do you know what the statute says as to when that needs to start?
There, it doesn't say in the
I don't
statute.
think it does.
It doesn't get silent, but so it's
So
not.
you're saying from a practical effect, I mean, to make things work correctly, we need to do it in a timely manner for.
Right.
for the-
Yeah, that was all my points.
Right, and I understand what Barbara's saying. My only point was I'd have to go back and look to see when we even found out about it this year, but it was passed this summer as part of new legislation, so but understood, and we will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not required to have the town say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. Basically,
But there's a deadline that's for a practical purpose.
which is very important, yeah.
And we discussed it in the summer when we first heard about it. And I think the view of the board to be collaborative with the Board of Finance makes sense. Because I think, because I think if we heard you had exercised it, we'd be looking to take 2% out of your budget.
Oh, well, it's not a full 2%, I don't think, so, but yes, yeah. Anyway,
Understood.
thanks. So Jen, I had sent an email about enrollment and such,
I sent all of the information over. It was late, it was last night, but I did send everything.
okay, I had a late board meeting last night, so I did
Okay,
not.
yeah, apologies. That's when I was able to get it to you, so.
Super, thank you.
The budget.
And she replied to your email with it.
Pardon?
She replied to your
Yeah.
email with it. Yeah.
But I think we got the budget analysis that you'd sent us. Did we have the census numbers also, Jen?
There's a separate attachment.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Yeah, it should all be there. If it didn't come through, please let me know, but I mean, my intent was to send it all.
Oh, it's the other one. Oh, yeah, yeah, there it is.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
There we go.
So, anything else?
No, that's it. I assume I'll stay on. I'm assuming I think we're on the agenda for later and I'll stay for that, right?
Okay,
Nancy, okay.
Thank you.
great. All right, and Marty is not here, but Lynn is. Did you want to share anything from the Board of Selectmen?
No, he didn't tell me that I should say anything.
Okay.
Anything we should know?
Well, we've been busy.
I know that. Yeah.
We do have the hearing coming up on November 22nd, which he emailed everybody about today, 7:00 in here. And it'll be hybrid, so people can watch it on Zoom. And we do hope people will come out and talk, those in support and those who have issues and questions.
Yeah.
He has made arrangements to have a presentation done by the companies that he's been working with. Hopefully we'll have a lot of information to share.
And this is basically, the proposals, they include the financing, so that it's self-financing, right? It's basically what the goal is.
Yeah, any money that the town receives in fines
Right.
and that it has to go back into the roads and it can go into this program.
Okay.
So the town can use it to improve the roads.
Okay.
That was the automated speed enforcement program.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And the process is that there's a hearing and then if this selectmen decide to proceed at town meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely have a town meeting. They just, Marty needed to talk with the registrars and the town clerk. But we will probably be setting the town meeting at our meeting next week on Tuesday. So we're hoping to do it that first week in December.
So your goal is to be up and running in January?
Well, it's gonna take a few months. They basically would wanna, they sort of told Marty it probably would get up and running in the spring.
Okay.
Because it's not gonna be just like flipping a switch.
Right.
There's a whole, because we have our two main roads are state roads.
Right.
We have to work with the State Department of Transportation, and we also have to work with the state police because our resident trooper is gonna help.
Gotcha.
Gates program.
Thank you. Madam Treasurer?
I don't have a written report tonight. I just thought I'd bring you up with a couple little updates. I'm waiting for a draft of the audit. And the only thing they're waiting for me is the fixed assets, which I'm finishing up. And that's just something they plug in. I wanted to float out the idea that there is going to need to be a budget transfer or an additional appropriation to the Scotticoke legal line. We have $138 left in that legal line, and I have a bill for $18,000. But I've been talking to Marty about it, and we really want to get a sense of how much more we would need to finish out the fiscal year and what other activity is happening as part of that recess year's effort.
That's a whole topic in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So has activity ramped up all of a sudden?
My understanding is that the law changed during the Obama administration, so that opened up the pathway for them to come back and reapply.
This is the Scottish Tribal Nation.
Yeah.
Yes. So this particular invoice is all about drafting history, drafting an argument, researching, preparation of comments, submissions. So what they're trying to do is stop it from going forward.
Right.
We aren't actually fighting it at this point.
Is Jeff Sinkowitz still our?
No, he has retired and we are now working with a firm called Perkins Coie.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And they're quite a bit more expensive than Jeff Sinkowitz.
Oh, significantly, I'm sure.
so there is not a pending case. You're just trying to be prepared to.
I would assume there has to be.
Stuff the
a
application.
case.
They have a file.
Yeah,
Yes, but I don't know where in the process it is, and I don't have enough information to answer your question accurately at this point.
but at some point, we're gonna have to respond to something that they've submitted.
They're preparing, yeah.
That's.
But we're also working with Kent Schools, so they're shouldering a portion of this cost. This is just our share of that cost.
Then there's also counsel in Washington, right?
I'm sorry, what?
There's counsel, there are attorneys in Washington we're working with as well.
We're not paying attorneys in Washington, we're just paying Perkins Coie, but maybe they're.
They are, right.
All right.
I really don't know what the structure looks like right now.
Right.
Okay. So I will ask Marty to speak to that at our next meeting.
Yeah.
We don't have enough information right now to flesh it out, but I wanted to make y'all aware that we will be looking for additional funding for that.
And also, just as you mentioned, the centennial or whatever, is that gonna, or is there a cost associated with that which would have an impact on budget conference?
Told us.
Okay, gotcha, so.
Because they're planning for 2026.
Right, so it would be the next one. Okay. Or could be, depending on when it's going on.
Okay, anything else, Barbara?
No.
Thank you. Okay, Jen, come up and join us, would you?
Sure. I'll give you these. And then I didn't have time.
This is Jen Dubray, she is our
Yeah,
town
so-
assessor.
And I didn't have time to put it up on the Google Doc. Anyway, but and Bonnie could probably add it to the minutes and then you have it. But just to give you an overview, so that you could absorb that. I said, Nancy before, is to kind of look it over and it might be best to come back before you in February.
Explain why.
I file a grand list every year.
Give one to Lynn also. Everybody else.
You file a,
Every year, we have to file a grand list that's effective October 1st of that year. I have to file it by January 31st. Don't really get it filed much before that, so I don't have numbers much before that. So that's why I would propose in February meeting, I could come before you with the numbers, all goes well and I don't get an extension. There are some changes in the motor vehicle process this year that I'm not sure how it's going to impact the grand list. I expect it's gonna go down on the motor vehicle. And also personal property will probably go down. Real estate should stay static because the reval was last year, so that holds for about 5 years until, except for whatever growth occurs during the previous 12 months.
Yeah. So any of the appeals or anything are already
The
finished and
appeals were all
dispensed
over
with?
for the reval.
Yeah.
They have to appeal, they had to make a written application by February 20th, the BAA met in March. I wanna say I had 7 or 8 appeals pertaining to the reval, of which I think they made two changes
Mhm.
to 2 counts, and no lawsuits after. So it really went.
And you're through the appeal process and there's no other appeals.
Yeah, the
until
time to
next-
go to court is over. They certainly have, I had a few calls this September when escrow accounts hit.
Right.
And their escrow accounts went up. I explained to them why. They have the ability to appeal again
Mhm.
on the 23 grand list. But they won't get the benefit. Well, they appeal the 24 grand list,
Mhm.
but based on 23 values that they've got to come and compare to.
And is the appeal process that the complaining taxpayer comes in, their evidence as to why?
They should come with their own appraisal or good information acceptable to the Board of Assessment Appeals. I'm not on that
Right.
Right,
board.
do you have to defend what was done, or they just take it for granted? They just take
The
it?
board? Oh, I generally meet with them and go over the information, just to make sure that they're everything, you know, they know of the property and they know what to look for, and then they'll go inspect, and they might come back and say, we were off on this, they don't have this.
Right.
That's pretty much what the
And that's
changes
all
were
done
that
already.
were made.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
So-
Oh, yeah, that's,
So there's nothing pending in that.
no, that all has to be done by statute within, the end of March. I think they have to complete their duties.
Gotcha,
Then there's a 60-day period where they can appeal to the court,
gotcha.
and so that's well past.
And nothing went to court, to the
No.
court.
Well past.
And have there been court things in the past, or?
Here, we had court cases on the 18th, I think there was one.
That was the last
and
one.
One on the 13th, but never more than one, and it was big boy. I mean, the nursing home always appealed, they appealed a couple times. I wasn't assessed with them, so I couldn't really speak to it.
And the
I've had
zoning board of appeals, were there any
Board of Assessment.
I'm sure, yeah, board of assessment appeals, were there any findings favorable or unfavorable to petitioners?
That's what, two.
You said
So just the
They
two, I'm sorry.
made 2 adjustments.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
2 council adjustments.
So that was it.
Yes.
So just going back, I'm still the newbie on this group, so. Excuse me if I don't understand what's supposed to be going on, but do all towns do it the same?
All towns have to reval every 5 years.
And is it the same year in each town?
It wasn't, I think now they have tried to set a schedule so the towns are, not all 169 towns are revaluing in the same year, of course. But I think maybe over 2 or 3, I would have to look that up, but they're trying to get it closer, it might be like a 3-year.
Right, and you're in an elected position, is that right?
No, I am appointed,
You're appointed by,
the Board of Selectmen are hired by the Board of Selectmen.
so you report to them ultimately if there's an issue in terms of oversight?
Yeah.
And then, am I correct that you hire another agency to actually, that presumably has?
I don't do the revaluation myself in-house.
Right.
That we contract out, I set out bid specs previous to the reval start date. And Vision was awarded the bid, which we've had Vision for many years now.
And their background to do it is, I mean, is it based upon real estate prices or?
They have their own statutorily required processes. They have to all be certified as well to be a revaluation company. They go through a lot of steps to do this statewide as well. And they're Massachusetts and maybe Rhode Island, but they're all over.
And they do a high percentage of them in Connecticut?
Yeah, I would say there's 3 that I know of. There's Vision, there's Equality, which is new on the scene. They did my reval in North Canaan. And Tyler Technologies is another company. But when you go outside of what your system is, then you have a whole system change. It's called the CAMA system, you'll see it in there. documentation. So if I were to go with Equality or Tyler, that would change my whole database in my computer system, and then I'd have to learn a whole new system too. So there's perks to going with the same company you've always had. Plus they know the town, they've been doing this town for years.
So what does it take to go from what was done and with all of us getting revised tax bills to produce the grand list? What is it adjust between that and the end of January?
It's a cyclical process, so I have to measure, discover, list and value every year what we have in the town as of October 1st. So it's real estate, personal property, motor vehicle. I get motor vehicles from DMV and, you know, it's a whole process. I have to list them, a new way, the state has implemented a new way to value them, which I can't really speak to yet because I haven't been through it as yet. Personal property is every business in town is to file by November 1st. And then I'm in the process of going through all those and putting it in. And then I come out with the grand list with the changes after we do the field work for the real estate, process the personal property, add the motor vehicle, put it all together.
I'm mostly interested in real estate, the field work being.
Once on a non-reval year, we go through with the permits that have been taken out. So anything of significance, remodels, additions, pools, we then go out and do field work.
Got it.
In the good weather, August, September, July, August, September, and it's what you have October 1st.
And if somebody is making a gift to a land trust, they come to you and, or they just file their.
No, I react to deeds that are filed with the, you know, on the land records. That would be
Right.
a transfer. Yeah, then there's tax exempt applications, there's veterans, there's a whole.
But basically, for those changes within the year, that pretty much all falls on you, or do you use the evaluating firm again for that?
No, only once every 5 years do we do this revaluation for real estate. That's the bring it back to market, bring it back to 70% sales ratio, assessment ratio. That's what we have to be in the state of Connecticut. So the further we get away from 70%, you know, that's what the reval does. It brings us back up to 70%. As that market exploded, we were getting further away from 70% of market value. The reval brought us back up to 70% of market value after all the statistical.
And if somebody is done an addition or whatever, you've seen the land records, how do you make that?
Those tables are now set up. So now whatever the cost is as of October 123, if you do an addition in 25, we're gonna use those 23 tables and costs. We don't chase the market, so if you buy a house for way more in the outskirts of the reval, that doesn't matter.
So only if they do,
That value is
if they do
set.
improvement, you basically do 70% of their
It's
expenditure,
built
right?
in, yeah, the
Right.
computer is tables built in based on cost to build
right.
as of 10/1/23.
So it's an objective criteria, not a subjective criteria.
Yeah, if it is all, you know, plywood goes up in 2026 again, like it did before, it's not gonna affect the value so much, just to give a slight example.
And the other thing, I know I'd asked this when we were, you know, looking at the mill rate, of course, and you were very responsive. But you know, and your response actually was, one of my worries was that, or at least what I wanted to know was that the high end of the market bear a commensurate share of the increase in valuation versus the low end, because obviously one of our concerns is that the folks who frankly, you know, aren't as well heeled, and I guess what you told us is basically, yes, that the high end went up more percentage wise.
The higher the value of
Yeah.
your property, the
Sure.
higher. it
But from
affected
point A
your
to
taxes.
point B,
But
right?
there's, you know, there's statistical standards we have to meet that you
Mhm.
can't, it all has to go together.
Right. And we can't do anything, I mean, it wasn't the case this go around anyway, because it kind of worked, it was progressive because the higher ends went up more percentage wise than the lower ends did. But if we were in, if there was some circumstance where the opposite happened, where people at the lower end of the house values went up more than the big, which frankly probably has happened in this town and
Probably.
droughts, right, when we've had the bad periods, right?
Some properties.
Yeah, do we have any mechanism for,
No.
look, no, sorry, we're on, yeah.
No, it's the calculation.
Right,
The levy
Right.
over the grand list.
Right.
So the grand list comes out to be.
uh-huh,
Your cars and your personal property are
Right.
direct effect of the mill rate.
sure,
So
that's right.
the mill rate goes down, those go down,
That's
just
right.
enough to help the high end
Right.
make up, but it's
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, so there is no mechanism, interestingly, enough when we as, kind of look at, it's not in a robust market where all boats are, rising, but there is some possibility that the two ends of the market move differently and that,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, there's the inherent problem that in general, if you think that the less expensive properties are owned by lower income people.
Right.
That they may, that they may have a more difficult time in paying for the eggs in inflation.
Right.
Yeah, but that's, well,
So totally different question. Is Tyler Technologies also Munis? That's the government accounting system?
I don't know the answer
Okay.
to that question, because
I'm
I've never
thinking
used
it's the
an
name of the
accounting.
company that owns Munis,
Could.
and many towns and
Never
cities
really
use
looked
that.
into Tyler
Yeah.
because they couldn't even bid.
Oh.
Half the time they don't even bid.
Yeah, but they're very big, so,
Mm.
and we're pretty small potatoes, so, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
in broad strokes, what does it cost to pay the company that does
the
that?
reval, I wanna say it was 45,000 roughly. That's less than it used to be, isn't it? We used to budget a lot more, I thought.
I have to look
I don't
back,
know.
but it's basically $50,000 is what we have in the capital. And that covers some of the field work and some of the preliminary, and then it leaves a little bit of cushion in the end for anything.
Yeah. But this was a statistical update too, so the full reval, every 10 years, you have to do a full reval, a full inspection reval.
Right.
That costs a little more, probably more like 70, I would project, I don't know. And that gets a little more. It's a little more informative because you actually have to see everything, or if they haven't had a building permit in a few years, you could use the building permit, or we'll use data mailers, companies do them now for us. So that we don't have to go to every house anymore.
Right.
So then people are really more involved.
Any other questions?
No, I was just gonna say thank you, I mean, I think, thank you for these materials. If you come and visit us again in a few months, in addition to having the grand list done, we'll have a chance to really.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
That's great.
It'll be interesting to see with the new changes in the motor vehicle, there's a new veterans exemption for the dwelling only at this point. For permanently and totally disabled vets, so the exemption amounts might go up by, of course, you do that. Because some of the towns are taking a big hit on that.
Could you also leave one of those packets with Bonnie for the
Yeah, I will.
minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks so much. Right, so next is the fire department and EMS. Why don't you all come up here and sit with us? It's a lot easier than trying to balance everything on your lap.
Yeah.
Great to see everyone. Thank
Good
you for
evening,
coming.
to see everybody. Thanks for having literally stakeholders at the table.
There you go.
One of our, I'm John Russell, I don't know if we've met.
Casey.
President, one of our colleagues tested positive. And I had been working with her for about an hour.
As you're moving farther away from Eric, I was just thinking.
Yeah, Eric's used to always having being a danger next to him, but just taking precautions. I don't have any symptoms that are tested negative.
May it continue that way.
Yes, I'm about to shed the mask.
Yeah, so tell us what's going on with you all.
Oh, how do you start? So we've, I guess, where do you wanna, we're working through this, current fiscal year. And, for our grant process and where we are in our budget, we remember operating on calendar year versus fiscal year that the town does, so ours is different. And, so we're just getting ready to finish that up. Eric's here, can give any projections on our regular budget if you're, Eric as our treasurer. So that's moving forward, and then we'll be moving forward with the town, grant request and where we are and so forth for your next year coming up in a couple months. The capital plan, we also have, money to request, as it goes in the projects and stuff. And, with that, one of the things that, I think is a concern of mine as chief is that the costs, and we've talked about this over the couple of years, but the costs are just not even, everybody talks about cost increases, right, and so forth, but it just seems not logical to me regarding fire apparatus and so forth.
It's exploded.
Yes, it just, costs overall increase. People talk about food, all the other stuff, which we see and we deal with, but this is just, just astronomical. So I think that we should work or have continuing meetings on that specific to figure out how best to handle that, as as a cooperative relationship. Because it's not just like, oh, it's a $400,000, $500,000 item, you know what I mean? You're talking $1 million plus for just basic things of fire apparatus.
Yeah.
In the replacement as it goes forward, and again, no crystal ball, but that's, where it is. So that's a big impact versus, other days when it was, $300,000 or, or something like that. And, just as an example, the rescue truck, which is, in the plan back in 2001, that was around $200,000, $200,000, yeah. So just as a as a point to that. On that, just as a point of information, looking through your guidelines that you adopted last year. So, the fire apparatus itself, meets your guidelines, meaning that it's supposed to have a life expectancy of 15 years or more, right? And more than $20,000, right? Into that case and so forth. But there are also other things that are what we consider very clearly capital things, meaning self-contained breathing apparatus that we wear, meaning the PPE that we wear under the turnout gear. And then they have life expectancies of less than 15 years. So I'm curious how we again should work towards how that's going to happen and where that would fit into your planning.
Process
Capital,
You
right?
can lot cap, that sort of thing.
You can what?
It's called lot capping. So if you have a number of the same things that you're buying at the same time, that can be a capital expenditure that then you would depreciate over time as you were setting money aside for the replacement.
So the life expectancy on that.
Harper, correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Okay.
So, but what I'm saying is that, in other words, meeting your guidelines, like the life expectancy on PPE, personal protective equipment, our
Less than
turnout.
15, yeah.
Right, so that's less than 15, that's a 10-year NFPA standard that it's done, has to be replaced. So it's
10, it's still.
So that's 5 years less than your guideline.
Mhm.
How would you handle that, or how would you want us to handle that if it doesn't meet the guideline?
These are called guidelines. They're not set in stone.
Okay,
Yeah, that's why we use the term guidelines specifically.
okay, all right,
If
good.
it was less than 3, that would be an issue, because by any accounting standard, it wouldn't be a capital thing, but 10.
Right. The 10 years seems to be a pretty good standard on there. I think the SCBA, what we were talking about, Eric, that's a 12 You think it's a 12? Yeah, it's in between and somewhere in there, right? That 12 to 15 potentially as you're going on the very max of that and as it goes in, but so and your idea of Luke combining, that's exactly how we do, what we're doing and so forth in that area.
You don't buy those onesies and twosies. Yeah.
Well, we do for certain things, in that case, because you have a new member coming in and you have to plan, so we have to have it in operations. But to do a full fleet replacement and as it goes in, so, okay.
Have those items been in our capital plan before?
They have not.
No,
Oh,
We have discussed options, we were able to get some with grants. So that was good, it kept it out of that process.
mhm.
But we've just recently applied for a grant and were denied. So
Did they tell you why you were denied?
I would have to work more with our grant writer, Liz, and to go over things that we're evaluating on. She's applied for a lot of grants for the fire department, so we're evaluating where some of the concerns were, and what, and why things have been denied.
And I assume you do this in collaboration with the Board of Selectmen also, right? The only reason being, I wondered if, if when you're applying for some of these things, if there are other players in town government who might be able to support you lobbying wise or whatever to kind of help to grease the skids a little bit and make it a little more likely that you're,
Right.
able to get a little more.
Yes,
So.
and then, with one of the previous years of grants, well, when Eric was chief,
Right.
they did a combined grant with kind of Warren Northville. And that was a successful grant, process, and so forth. And that was for the self-contained breathing apparatus. And so again, we looked at that, and again, some of you around before, remember, like as we're planning for things, if a grant can come in, right, then the money can stay and be used for something else within not a certain fire department. It's process that you have, but it's a win-win for the town, a win-win for the department, all the way through. Meaning the double wins in there, right? Because then the money stays there, stays for the taxpayers and so forth as it goes in. And if the money's coming in from the federal government, it's still taxing money of all of us as citizens, right? But at least it's there and it's not coming out of the local coffers, to speak of, and local, bounty in that case, so.
Who do you seek grants from?
All over, from the federal government, from local, even some local businesses. Walmart from New Milford has given us small grants. Some of the banks give us small grants. First Light has been, from the dam and going Bulls Bridge South and so forth. They've been a very big supporter. We've got, John, what was most recent totals that we were talking with them about? Was it in the 40s? Yeah. Over $40,000 over the period of 6-7 years, something like that.
Northwest Community Foundation, do they support fire departments, EMS? Yeah.
We just got some upgrades to the firehouse. Yeah, great. It's worth keeping in mind that at the federal level, at least with the current administration, that these FEMA grants, AFG, Assistance for Firefighters type grants, part of their charge is to make sure that districts in impoverished areas of the country are, their needs are addressed as best as possible first.
Yeah, we got the wrong zip code, yeah.
Yeah, yes, we have, yes, that's one of our hurdles there.
So, again, just as we move forward, I think from the capital side, and again, working with the Board of Selectmen in this area, I wanted to, you had asked about it in the meeting, and it's great because we were talking, John and I, about wanting to meet you guys as we foreseeing things coming down the road. One of the things that the Kent Volunteer Fire Department has been able to do with the support of the community is provide for the cost of individual ambulances, through donations and or fundraising. It never had to be an item in the capital plan. We foresee and forecast that as changing going into the future because of the costs associated, with an ambulance and so forth. So you'll see very shortly when submission comes in the next couple of days on the capital plan, looking out that 10 years from now, 6 years from now, things like that into that plan, trying to follow your chart to start to plan and where that goes. And so that's where we're, at right now. We're reevaluating, what the best way to do that is versus a combination of fundraising and grants, a great community here with support, from people that are either weekenders or living here full time, but that want to help and make those things happen, the older days when the ambulance first started with the thermometer, how that worked and so forth. So, to do a combination of things. So there's a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, which is nice to see. So it goes in. So that's kind of the capital side. If you had anything or any questions, I know that's coming up right away, but I want to.
One thing is on your grant making. Do you have an advisory board or something like that? And if you don't, I just put my 2 cents in on this. It might be, we've got some wonderful folks in this town whose advice on that and connections might be helpful, in particular to you guys. And I wonder if that might be worth kind of pursuing, how you get some of those folks to be on call for you guys because I love the fact that you're kind of always on this grant thing, because, as you said, anytime that you guys can bring in, gives us the ability to do some other things instead. And I suspect there are a half a dozen folks around in this town that we might be able to recruit just to be on call for you guys when you're doing this, to me.
To John, if you want.
Yeah, right now, I'm guessing for the first time in department history, we actually have our own grant.
Yeah.
We have a grant writer in this place who's brings a lot to the table. And I think I share her level of discouragement with grant applications, the results of grant applications at the federal level, but certainly not anywhere beneath that. She's been great at sitting alongside us, because she has a certain learning curve that she has to work with. Is learning what equipment we're talking about, and as she gets the grasp of all this more and more, she's able to actually work more independently and pursue grants. I would strongly encourage you to make those folks, send them in our direction, not necessarily that I would replace Liz at all.
Oh, no, I mean, just to be supportive for her.
It's a volunteer opportunity for her that she's taken on. And, but so it doesn't mean it's forever. So as you become aware of grant experts, please, I would send those in the direction of President. And our email address is president@campfire.org. And we would certainly put those in the room.
I'll give you a good example. I'm going off at the end of the year, but I'm on a huge foundation in New York, but it just so happens that our general counsel has a weekend house here, but I think we have a whole bunch of folks like that, who not corporate people, but even in the not-for-profit world, who already are out there in the grant thing, who just would be a good sounding board for your person. So I'll kind of try to reach out.
She would gladly connect with them.
And if I could just, Jason, I think that would be fantastic. And, obviously Nancy has the contacts and so does, and so forth. But, Liz has been just, beyond words, to step up and volunteer and help do that. But to even have other people that have exposure so they know, hey, look in this avenue, look in this area right now, this is something, because that's a constant thing, right? We live in a small town in the northwest corner, and then it's like, oh, there's this, or whatever can be done. So that would be, even a big step here to, to do that all the time. Liz is saying, if you hear something, let me know. And boom, she just starts to apply, does whatever and so forth. It is just, remarkable, from that perspective.
Okay.
So yeah, that's I think it's great.
So that's the revenue side of things. How about the expense side of things? What's going on with that?
So, our operating budget, we're almost done with, for this year. Eric can give a snapshot in time about where things are.
Do you want to talk EMS first? Is that billing?
We can talk about whatever you want to talk about first, second, or third.
Yeah, I think we should cover all bases that way we're there. The EMS side is a little bit separate, and so that's an ongoing situation.
So what John's getting at is basically
Thanks,
the.
John. This is Jason, if you don't know.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Keegan, I'm sure you know, and Casey.
Sorry.
Bonnie will need one though.
I think that
You got one? Okay.
Barbara herself.
we've been having regular meetings, the selectmen, myself, and these fellows, to talk about these different activities, so.
Good, because, yeah, so.
So page one is the billing information for this year. Page two, which is a little outdated, I shouldn't say outdated, not caught up in 2024. So you'll see the total collected is lower than the front page. The front page is but page two shows 23 and 22 also for comparison. So EMS staffing that the town has paid for currently is at $271,085.29. And the revenue from billing is $146,268.44 to date.
It's the billing, but what's been received?
The 146
Did
is
you see
received,
that?
correct? Yeah. So if you see that discount ambulance billing,
Mhm.
I don't know that that's the right term, but that 104,000 is, so the state allows a set rate bill for EMS.
Mhm.
But we don't collect all that. So they bill for the entire rate, there's standard billing for Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance. So the amount billed does not equal the amount collected.
Mhm. Okay. So,
I'm confused as to what ambulance billing revenue other is.
So the ambulance billing revenue other is the total that has been billed for the year. So it's 250,843 that's been billed. But the 104,575 is basically a write-off because it was.
So if you could bill the real amount, it would be 354,
No, it'd be the 250,
250.
correct.
so if the bill is, say, 2,500 for an ambulance call, and it's Medicare, then you only get a
600, I think, or 400.
portion of that, okay?
Yeah.
And the same with the private insurance, depending on who the insurer is.
Correct.
And who keeps track of all that?
Well, we hire a billing company.
Oh,
It does ours.
Okay,
It's a third-party billing company. And then it's tracked where hired bookkeeper who receives the reports.
so you have hired a bookkeeper?
We have, yes, for several years now, yes. Yes.
And the EMS staffing, which the town is paying for, who is the staff?
The staff is a hired outside staffing agency.
That sends the people.
Correct. Yes.
So just to touch base on that, is that again, when we saw a few years ago, however long a year goes, Nancy, it was like 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
It's been coming for, yeah, it's just. it's
About
been-
4 or 5 years ago, where again, we're trying everything and we continue to try and hope that the community will come up or help, meaning you guys, the board of selectmen and so forth, about better ways or incentives. We're seeing an improvement in our call responses with the, at least I am in my opinion and observation, because of the, I'm relating it partially because of the tax, property tax adjustment, that happened.
Mhm.
And so I do see certain members that I didn't see before coming more often, and there's a point system, so they need to make those if they want to get that benefit.
Right.
So again, if nobody said, well, I'm coming now because of this, I'm not, but I believe, as we believe, this is a factor in helping with recruitment, it's a factor in helping with retention. And then, again, you have to meet those call things, so that's one small thing, that a member can do and move towards and look for those numbers. So yeah, I'm gonna help out with this, I'm gonna go more here, I'm gonna make,
Well, there may be, I mean, more for optics than anything else, but there might be some other things to add to the portfolio, like you get your transfer station permit for nothing if you're, some things you probably haven't looked at yet, but I'll bet you there's some other enhancements which are.
Right, that might help, help
Right.
that substitution of that particular. So if you remember with EMS.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And with EMS, not to go into the whole,
Sure.
thing of it, it's like we did before, but we certainly can if we need it. But, but we looked at, again, what models can we do? How can we continue to do this and make this happen? And so that's when we went to a staffing model, which is where a company is hired that provides the staff only, the EMTs only.
Right.
Everything else is covered under Kent Volunteer Fire Department, through the operating budget, through capital, things, people making donations for the ambulance, the supplies, all of that relates to all those other costs and so forth. So, we still continue to have people, that are within the fire department that, sign up for a shift and work on so forth. Right now, our, difference is about approximately 45% of the shifts, 45, 48 of the shifts are covered by the staffing company. And then the rest are covered by the volunteer. So we're still doing more than 50%. We're right on that edge. We have one person new that just started a class from EMT. We have another one lined up for, I think it's February, March is one of the next classes that they're starting. We are working towards getting a class for an EMR/EMT, definitely EMR, to be held at the Kent Firehouse sometime in March, to start that process. If we can get the numbers of people and to take it, the course and so forth. So that's where we're at now. The staffing model where you have a paid staff only is one model that's out there. It's what's used very commonly amongst other towns around us. The town of Sharon, went to that model a few months ago. And so they're actually using the same staffing company that we are, so it's that we changed to.
Mhm.
We did change staffing companies, which we talked to you about before. It's a higher rate for the staffing company that we have now. There were 3 options that were interviewed and gone through a whole process. And the company that was picked was in the middle. And it wasn't just the dollar amount that was there. It wasn't picked the highest one or the least expensive one, but there were other factors, makeup and how they structure their company and business and so forth. And so that's what we're under now and currently in an agreement with. So their rates are higher than what it was when we were using the other company. Our budget number for the current fiscal year you're in now was based on the other company's numbers. So we did talk about this when it was coming about, to first selectman, to Barbara, just saying, hey, we don't know where we are yet. This is what's coming, but we're looking at moving to this other company. It is a higher rate per hour. And then they have other factors in there, like for overtime. There's not overtime on a normal basis, but there's holiday pay. There's things where the other company had overtime, after 40 hours for an individual, different aspects of that. So at this point, we are projecting with Barbara that we are going to be over the budgeted amount for the ending of this current fiscal year. And in our meetings, Barbara had said she was going to let you guys be aware of that. So we are projecting that. Barbara's numbers, she has her projections. We're working on our own projections as we, currently do. They're, I will say, in the ballpark of each other. Where we're at, in fact, it's going to come up, that will affect that. But that's where we are now. I don't know yet how that difference will be made up. In this, whether we'll be back to you saying, hey, we're gonna do something, we're looking at what other alternatives there may be. But the department is then evaluating this and looking at this to see what can be done. But we haven't come up with a banging on the door, and so forth, and as this perspective. This is different than in the previous year. Remember when we talked with the Board of Finance, we said, hey, we're projecting this right up front. You said, look, we've got to do this other things. If you do whatever, we're hoping we can help incentivize, volunteers, to make more things or can happen and be out there. So we're, looking at those things too.
Now, and recruiting volunteers. How do you do it? I mean, is there an event, a fair, something, that might get you a little more exposure with your target population of volunteers?
So by far, hands down, the most effective way we have gained volunteers, emergency volunteers, is through word of mouth. Tested. And so I think if I look at, we've deployed signs, and I can safely say we've gained one member who's made it all the way through and is an active emergency member now, whereas it was word of mouth. Now, we don't do much in the way of recruiting get-togethers, per se, open house or something like that, though we have tried that before. And certainly there was an EMS week once we've tried doing that. We do host the public at the firehouse a number of times, and I would say the public is hopefully very aware that we're looking for new members, but nothing has come close to word of mouth. So social media,
Right. Really?
Unbelievable, and numerous positive and kind of factual, highlighting some of the work we do on calls, also our events, and the occasional follow-up by taglines that we're looking for volunteers. I was really heavy in that last year and the year before, and not impressed. I even had a social media marketer work with me and help spruce it up a little bit, but
Do we, when like that?
Could you tell us the numbers, like how many EMTs do you have? How many UMRs, how many firefighters? Because I think when people hear that, they are shocked at how few people you have that are actively volunteering.
Can't tell you off the top of my head, but we certainly can get you those.
You've seen the numbers before,
Right.
we know it's small, but.
But it changes,
refreshers
you
for-
know, it's
Yeah.
not like
Also,
a
can
static
we-
number.
Whenever we do have a town meeting or whatever, do we put a pitch in on the program or whatever, no matter what the subject is we're doing? I wonder if we might. I mean, you have nothing to lose, right? But people take it seriously when they go to a town meeting. It might not be a bad thing for, one of the selectmen to kind of just make their pitch for volunteers,
It's also very difficult in the town of Kent, we teamed up with the affordable housing to try and come up with solutions for housing. The younger generation isn't, here and
Right.
working 2 jobs and 3 jobs and.
There was chatter about the extension back behind the firehouse, the old manufacturing building. Is that a potential still, or is that? No, it's Kaputnik, huh?
We applied for a grant and were denied that also.
But it still could be a possibility if there was funds.
Sure.
So, and then you talked to Kent Affordable Housing, I'm sure, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because we have the committee, so we're really looking at, and I'm sure you saw the sheet, the information that they sent out, the survey. Then it came back and there was a good percentage of people that said, yes, if housing was affordable, they would be very interested or highly likely, I forget the wording that it was, to join the fire department as part of a condition of that, similar to, you were just saying a few minutes ago about other things, where that would be one idea of helping people to be part of something and do this, in that particular case. Just to go back, Bonnie is here and so forth. So for the EMS side, remember I said that we were covering just over 50% of the ships. So we do that with a total of 10 people. That's it. They divide all that up.
That's why I wonder.
So to your point from that side of it, so. And to to cover that, you know, all the shifts. Remember, it's not one person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's 2 people, you know, that are required, so. So it is a lot, and if somebody's out sick or somebody has a problem, you know, whatever, then you've got to scramble and so forth, because it's, you know, it's.
I just think I wonder if, right, how many townspeople are aware of, I think as you said, how pressing this would be, you know, that, you know, I think we've just gotta get everybody to pitch in on helping you guys make this more visible for the townspeople. Because I still have, you know, faith in the townspeople if they know that we really need folks to do things.
I couldn't agree more, you know, in this case, and somehow if we can get that message out a little bit more to see, right? Because it's also, we say 24/7, you know, but it's not, you don't have to do the 24/7, you know? Some of us are diehard and do a lot of that, but we divide it into shifts, so it's a 6-hour shift. We ask them you block out 6 hours. So just do simple math.
Yeah.
Most people take a 12-hour shift.
Right.
Okay, so 12 hours at, what is it, 40, what's the staffing company charge?
Pay rate?
Yeah,
Right.
40 what?
4150.
41.50 an hour for 12 hours, you just saved that.
Right.
So if that's 1 day a week that you're doing that, you know, so if we say, you know, Jason, is this possible? You can train, you whatever, can you do 1 shift of, or it's 2 shifts, we do 6-hour shifts for people to make it easier. But see how much money that can save to go right back in from that cost or where we're at, in that.
Well, and I wonder frankly, even, you know, even with our friends, you know, at the Board of Ed who have a regular communications program with their constituency, if you could kind of, you know, get them at least a couple of times a year to put in a pitch for you. I mean, you know, that's something, an infrastructure that's already there. I just think we gotta look for more things like that, you know, because even if you can double the number, you know, from 10 to 20, for you, that's really meaningful.
That'd be huge.
Right, yeah, you know.
And we are fortunate that, through the efforts and that's been happening, you know, our numbers are going up.
Yeah.
We are getting more people. Part of the problem is when they get involved and they see what the commitment is to take these hundreds of hours of, you know, over 100 hours of training, plus then, you know, all the follow-up, all the distances.
Right.
Like right now, I have 4 individuals in the firefighter 1 program. You know, it's up at the regional training school.
Right.
So it's about a 45-minute drive one way and then coming back.
Right.
They're going on Mondays and Wednesday evenings, so I just pass them and check in with them and so forth.
Right.
And then it's a lot of all-day Saturdays and all-day Sundays, you know, or.
At least just gotta get through that hurdle before you.
Yeah, once you get through that, then they get out of there as firefighter 1s, interior firefighters certified by the state. They pass all their things and they're doing well and so. But it takes a lot of support, you know, for them to get through this. These are people that also, you know, working a regular job. One of them's a junior member, so he's, you know, going to school, and then the others are all working.
Junior member.
The junior member, in order to go through the firefighter 1 program, or our junior member in the department,
To go through the firefighter 1,
17 or to 18.
okay, and to be junior in the fire department?
It's 14 to 18, up to 18.
Uh-huh.
And the state changes rules on the junior member being able to go to take firefighter 1. So they can do it if they're 17, and then they can go through the process, and then they can become and take the exams, but they can't get their certificate until they turn 18. So there's a caveat there, and there's a lot of safety measures put in place when they go through the live burns and all that stuff. As you can well imagine, they're there for everything, but that's one of the nice benefits of having the regional training, you know, school. And so, but it's still a drive, you know, in that case, all the time. So you're talking 3 days a week on average that, you know, they're going up there, so.
Wow.
So that's kind of, you know, where we are right now with this, with the EMS side. Working with, as Barbara talked about, starting to meet with with Marty and Barbara. And if you'll remember, we had asked this body and the Board of Selectmen a couple of years ago that we saw this as, what I'm saying is a fluid type of situation, right? Hopefully it could go down. It's not, it's been going up, but it's because of cost and everything else as it goes in. But to work as a group to say, what can we do? Make sure that way you're informed as the Board of Finance. Obviously, you have a huge picture to look at the Board of Finance, you know, for all the town and so forth. But as this is here and as, you know, what it is. So we're looking at to see what else can be done. Jason, just some of the things you're talking about right now, but also in the bigger picture. Is the model we're using the correct model? Is it giving us, as what's the old saying, the biggest bang for the buck or something like that? Right? So is that working? Is it? You know, where are we at in this case? But just imagine if these 10 people, and Lynn, thank you for bringing up about, how much your numbers are specifically with EMS, but how, if we weren't doing that percentage, so if you've got your projection, I think now was 370.
Well, yeah,
I'm just gonna, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm projecting that there's between a $67,000 shortfall at this point.
So if you take the 320 plus that, right, so let's say 380, just 375, let's say 375, now double that. That doesn't count the ambulance, the supplies, the fuel, all these other things that make things happen, you know what I mean, in this particular case, so. We need to, again, focus on this and where the towns are.
Well, also, I wanted to say, sorry, you're just provoking a lot of thoughts for me, but I would love even to see at the regional, at the high school, why if they have vocational ed, can they do some of the modules that, for firefighting there, which even if they don't become firemen, ultimate firefighters, volunteer ultimately. If they have some of those courses already done, though, at least I'll bet it makes it easier.
Yes.
Than looking at this enormous thing when, when
Probably a
right.
very specialized certification in order to train firefighters that you wouldn't see at a normal
Right.
brick and mortar
Yeah.
high school.
Right.
So, yes.
But the thing is that all
It all
the
depends
towns,
what
all the
course.
towns have the same issue.
That's right,
So they
exactly,
could- you guys could band
And some of
together.
the courses, not to be everything, but I think there's some of those courses, which at least you wouldn't have to do when, because one of his things is just the turnaround time. And anything that could help reduce the number of training hours when you need them by having already knocked off some, might not be a bad thing.
Maybe the high school
Right.
partnering with
Right.
the entity, the regional entity that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Where the training happens.
The training schools up in Torrington.
Right.
The Michigan County.
But
Regional
that's
training
pretty
school.
convenient to the high school.
That's right.
Well, the directors up there.
Yeah.
Worked with the Northwest Community College to try and do
Oh,
a
right.
similar type program. And
Okay.
it kind of fell apart during COVID, and I know they're trying to work on it. It hasn't come to fruition yet, but yes. A lot of people trying to think outside the box.
And also organization changes too, with the state community colleges too, I think.
Well, also, I just think the town probably doesn't quite understand when you kind of laid out all the things you guys are wrestling, interestingly, so
Yes.
anything,
Yep.
we can do to help,
Yep.
citizens understand it.
One of the things, we do have a committee, for recruitment and retention.
Yeah.
And we were talking about grants. First Light gave a grant of 5,000 and
Mhm.
not this current year, but the year before. and it
Right.
was To help with recruitment and retention. So the committee's working through that and doing some different things
Yeah.
and so forth. But one of the things that's probably gonna come up very shortly is an expert speaker that will come in and talk about how to enhance for specifically volunteer fire departments, this and so forth. It's a speaker that the Litchfield County Fire Chiefs Association had come out and do a course and so forth. So we're working on trying to get that here, and as that gets finalized in the next maybe month or two, we are strongly, my request to the committee has been strongly to encourage the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to be able to attend and just to see, of course, whoever else would be there, but to see what the goals are. We all know what the end goal is, but how you get to those, and the costs associated with that. Because, if you're doing recruitment and you're doing this and you're hiring and you're paying for the course, sending people to school and everything else, and then it's like, what's the life expectancy? Where's the set? Because things change and so forth, so I don't mean life as in death, the life expectancy of that person being.
That's right.
There to be able to function in that capacity, so. So we'll definitely keep you in that loop and so forth, so.
Okay. What else?
We pay New Vance or New Milford for something, don't we?
There is a regional paramedic program,
Right.
that is paid to, New Vance. And that paramedic is based at New Upper Hospital. And they provide paramedic service to the region, not the town of New Milford. Town of New Milford decided that they wanted to have, they're paying to have their own because of their call volume and need.
Right,
And
exactly.
so
Give
forth, so they're
them
using that themselves, right, in this case. But that paramedic comes out of the region.
So that's different than this, that's a different line item in the budget?
Yes.
That's the fire department budget.
Right.
That's our own budget.
So
The paramedic cost is in the town budget.
is in the town budget, and are there other health issues in the town budget besides the paramedic?
LCD, right?
The town does, it covers our workman's comp.
Right.
But that's not even,
Yeah.
it's combined.
And how do you folks interact with the new advanced paramedic program?
Exceptionally well.
That's good.
Yeah.
And that's just for like really serious situations.
Yeah.
It's not for all calls,
That's,
right?
that's where there's a heart attack or something, and the EMS people call the paramedics and the-
Potentially life threatening or
Yeah,
life threatening.
in real layman's terms, yes, but it's changed a lot. In other words, when you call 911 now through LCD, they have a structured tier program that talks to the caller. And then they identify the call. It's an algorithm that
Right,
goes.
so we got a protocol.
You're asked questions.
Yeah.
Like, I need help. Well, yes, you're getting the help. But
Right.
also there's a trained emergency medical dispatcher that's going to tell you what to do to help make life and death intervention while you're there on the phone, if you do that,
Right.
which most people will. And then they'll give them medical instructions on
Right.
how to do that. But also then it sets the tier level. So that way we're not getting a regional asset, a paramedic on every call, like you just said, but we're also getting the appropriate thing based on that call. Then when, like, for example, a first responder from Kent, from the fire department, or when the ambulance arrives, they then can request a paramedic if they haven't already been dispatched, or they can tell the paramedic, you're not needed here, because things have stabilized, or it wasn't as bad maybe as it sounded based on the algorithm and where things are into that case. Or if conditions change while they're going towards the hospital, then you would add that to them. Because of our geographic location, we also have a paramedic service out of New York. It's called Northern Duchess, so you'll see that if you start in the breakdown into the areas right into there where there's a fee for that, and that's paid through the fire department. And that's a set cost per call. How that works out into that,
and that's New Vance as well, right?
no,
Northern,
this is Northern Duchess,
Northern Duchess is part of New Vance?
No,
it's a separate private company.
Makes sense. Thank you.
what else?
I'm thinking there's three financial channels coming from the town to the department, the operating grant, the capital plan, and the staffing. I feel like Alan kind of certainly made the case for the most recent capital expenditure, the tanker truck replacing a tanker that was only 34 years old. And that we've got engine 2 coming down the pike, and Eric will be submitting grant or capital requests for the eventual replacement of engine 2. At some point, a ladder truck will just have to have that conversation somehow, somewhere. And the other item is the staffing, and we've discussed how it's anticipated that there'll be an overrun on that again. So your thoughts are to discuss that as a body, and then respond in a way about how that could or should be dealt with.
When we get into the fullness of I guess that's the capital budget, right?
But yes, but the fire department and the ambulance has turned into a very big financial operation. And no matter how you look at it, it has exploded.
Yeah.
Financially. And
Not just you, but we know this is a phenomenon.
Right. and you all are working like Trojans to accomplish the mission of getting help to people, taking care, or rescuing people, putting out fires and such. The financial management and operation is more and more critical than it's ever been before. And what kind of help are you getting for that?
With the financial management.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like your process, your business processes and procedures and, you know, what kind of help or, are you looking at or
Right.
is it being discussed? I know you met with Marty and Barbara.
Cursory, it's being discussed, yes, we had a discussion about it last night.
So can we
I-
talk about that a bit because these other people don't know.
Well, there's three large kind of expense areas to support us in administrative. One is our billing company, which takes a cut from every bill. There's a bookkeeper that's expenses are somewhere around $23,000 or $24,000 a year. And then one other kind of administrative support that escaped my mind. But the bookkeeper will be one area that impacts our operating grant request among other things. As that individual may be looked to take on some additional functions possibly. In terms of what I'm assuming is a reference to some sort of an overseeing board.
Yes.
That's a very worthy discussion because it helps the first selectman, at the very least, the treasurer to rely on some other experts that are not really in the mesh of the department to kind of keep an eye on tax dollars and how they are flowing to the department in those three areas. Certainly, the operating grant is very important so that the fire department and because all emergency members run the department, they're in charge, they approve all expenditures. And it would be critical for the members to continue to be able to deliberate and allocate financial resources as they're needed as conditions change in that area. But why wouldn't it be such a problem for fire department elected officials at the fire department to meet with a board to discuss these financial matters? I don't see it, but maybe you could shed some more light on.
And how put processes and procedures into place. You all need to focus on running the department and not so much on the back office operations of the grunt paperwork, the administrivia, that sort of thing. And I know from discussions that there were some situations where claims could have been put in for monies that, couldn't be followed through because you don't have enough people. And so if there's a process that's put in place and talking with this advisory group that you all have started chatting with Barbara and Marty about, I think it would be very helpful because it would give you as the management of the organization the tools to use to hold people's feet to the fire and say, okay, we've made this as easy as possible for you to get these revenues, so you have more revenues. I mean, some of these things that weren't put in where you would have received revenues, we don't want you leaving money on the table. I mean, it's kind of what it comes down to. And so for them to help you put together some people that you're comfortable, talking with and working through and trying to come up with some easier processes. And there's so many different computer programs now that could be used. I'm sure that there are some things that would help. And so that is kind of what I wanted to make sure that was said tonight.
That's a helpful addition to the picture being painted for us so that we can continue to discuss it on our end. And it's not my next question is not at all a criticism at all. But I see two different problems of what you were discussing, because one you said was advisory, and advisory implies really not involved, not doing, not accountable, but
Not in your weeds.
not in the weeds, right? Just supervise, well, not even supervise it, just keeping an eye on
Yeah.
things and offering
Yeah.
suggestions and then nothing. But then you also discussed actual practitioners in the financial process.
Well, it's not necessarily that it would be this group. I mean, it would be, some tools to give you all to use. I mean, it's whatever you all can work out in, your conversations with the town treasurer and the first selectman to assist you, because you've got your hands full, big time, and you're short on people, and you're having to pay this, expensive company to come in and shore things up. And, I'd rather have you putting your attention to where your areas of expertise are, which are emergency services, life safety services for this community. And you accept some suggestions from another entity. Jason was talking before about all these different people that are, lurking up here in the woods that have areas of expertise who would be, delighted to lend their expertise, I'm sure, with some ideas of processes and procedures that you all could work with without having to have you buy a bunch of new computer equipment or whatever. I mean, there's some basic business things that I'm sure could be done that would help you out. And not necessarily that somebody else would be doing them, but that if you do this instead of that, you save, an hour, that sort of thing.
Well, and even the way how we plan and function and go forward, with that from an advisory group. They have nothing but benefits all the way around, because it is growing, it's changed.
Very
It's like,
much so.
I mean, all the way through, everything's changed. Right now, it's got attention because it's changed in a large dollar amount, right? You've heard me say that.
Which is why we're here having
Right,
this conversation
it's a
tonight.
regular area, But I mean, just as an example, like, you in many commissions, right, or within the town of Kent, you operate as volunteers, right? You're elected and you're appointed, whatever it is, and you come as volunteers. Some may get a small stipend, as a selectman or something, right? But it's, most of it is volunteers. But then you have a paid person that is a clerk or a secretary or whatever you want to call it, where they're doing that stuff. That's a model that you use, that maybe could benefit the fire department. I'm just using this as an example, right? It's something here that happens. So again, when you use that advisory stuff as we work together, some of you, I think Nancy, you might be the only one looking around the room that were on the board when several years ago, when I had requested the Board of Selectmen under Bruce appoint a committee made up of some members of the fire department, members of the Board of Finance. There was 2 members, and 2 members of the Board of Select, and to act as an advisory group. And we met multiple times over a period of almost a year and came up looking at our finances, looking at our structure, looking at how we do things, looking at capital, at planning, to look at everything. Number one, to help in an advisory capacity, make some suggestions, ideas. Chris Garrity was one on that as a Board of Selectmen. Mike Sabetic was on from the Board of Finance. There was another gentleman, I forget, he lived at the Kent condominiums at the time. Yes, as the, who is it? Mark Quinn, yeah, as the Board of Finance, and then Jeff Parkin from the Board of Finance, or excuse me, Board of Selectmen. And so we had met and went through at different meetings and going through ideas, and so they could better understand how we're operating at the time. And then things we might do to change, how do we work? Also then to come back to you guys and say, okay, we need as a town to prepare for this. We need to prepare for this. And I remember one of the things that stuck out was Chris Garrity saying, as my memory goes, right, I'm not putting words in my mouth, said, but this is changing. And this is getting now where there's gonna be a higher cost to the professionalism that's being done. And so forth, and I'm calling professionally of the service, professional services that are offered. That's what we're offering and doing, on a volunteer basis.
Right.
So just in that area, that advisory setup, to make that work. So I would, again, as chief, ask that be, I think what I'm hearing you say, so you're almost asking us about that, but something similar to that. And we certainly could work with the Board of Selectmen, because the Board of Selectmen actually made an appointment of these, for us, of the people, and did it and reported it as a committee. And went through, and Chris Garrity was the secretary, took notes, and and so forth. So again, it's just certain things, maybe kind of tweak that as it goes through.
Right, and that'll depend on your discussions with, the Board of Selectmen and the town treasurer. So, I mean, we're happy to weigh in, but we are concerned, so it's very important that that gets followed through.
Did it get disbanded, or how come it stopped?
The task at hand was done, and there was an evaluation, I don't want to say, maybe not an evaluation, it's an advisory.
So it was a temporary advisory board.
Yep.
Ad hoc kind of type of meeting, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then again, it went through its stuff, they looked at, there's only so much stuff to look at, right? I mean, in this case, but it went through, came up with some ideas and talked about, and then part of the problem was there was recommendations about like capital planning, but then when you come back to budget time, there's no money to put, like, oh, we can't increase this grant, can't increase that, you know what I mean, wherever it is, and all of a sudden it's like, and then it's a concern because you're, where are you at? What's gonna happen now? It's gonna come back to get you down the road, but where we're stuck. And I know you guys hear this all the time because you plan the capital plan, right? So people come in and say, you can't do this, you can't do this. You're like, well, we got a plan down the road. That's why you do a 10-year picture, right? With a 5-year block and so forth. So.
This was very, very helpful, very
Yeah.
enlightening for me, anyways, So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
It's great. Is Jen? Did Jen? Is Jen still?
She's still.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted, but I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you. So, yeah, so you sent us the
Thanks, guys.
information, we haven't had a chance to look at it.
Right.
So, is there anything, the question I have for you is, I did not show up at one of your meetings yet to say, if you have a teacher retire or resign, please consider not replacing them. Is that still something that you all might consider?
Yeah, I mean, I think we try really hard, Nancy, when there are changes. There was a teacher. I can't
We
remember.
had
if it
one
was-
teacher last year, yeah.
I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but there was a teacher that left. We did not fill the position. So I think we try very hard to make good decisions as things happen. I don't know of anyone retiring. A retirement needs to be notified to us sometime early in the year contractually. So it's a little bit early to know that right now. I think it's a February date. So, and then, people could always leave. That's for someone, who's actually retiring, but so I don't know of anyone right now, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. But I think we certainly would would make good decisions as things change.
Jen, I guess my question is, I don't know, it hit me after the the new mill rate meetings, et cetera, and knowing you guys are basically half of the town's expense, right? I mean, you and both, the center school and the high school. And I'm wondering, when is the last time, and there's not a right or wrong answer to this, when's the last time you actually had a consultant come in and say, not just on the expense side, but just operations, say, gee, have you thought about these things? Have you, there's some opportunities maybe that in the day-to-day thing we don't ever get to. And would it be, and that's for you and your board, but ultimately, when's the last time you kind of brought somebody in to help you look at those issues? And is there any benefit to doing that?
I don't know the last time we've
Okay.
done that. I don't believe since I've been on the board, although I want to confirm with other people, but I don't believe we've done that.
No, I mean, it's good because interestingly, I always just kind of worry, so, every X number of years, it's not bad because maybe there's things that have passed us by that we hadn't thought of or whatever. And even if the answer winds up being do nothing at the end of it, sometimes it's good to have that process periodically where you say, do you hear some areas that maybe you ought to be rethinking, and oh, by the way, here's some things either that cost more or might save us some money. But if we don't, I think you're a big enough player in the town's overall budget. It's probably not, I don't know, I mean, you, Nancy, tell me, but it's, and then for us to figure out how do we find some money to make that possible for you, would it be something that I would at least use our meeting to say, might you raise this with your board? And
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I'm not
And this is not, I'm not like I'm looking for you to cut half your budget or something, but I just think every X number of years, it's probably not a bad thing, given how large a component of the town budget you guys are.
Yeah, Jason, look, I mean, it's a good point. In all honesty, I don't know that we've ever done it. I don't think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I don't, I have no idea what the cost of that looks like. I
Right.
don't know how that would be paid for. I mean, I think there's things we'd have to understand.
Yeah.
But I think if it would give both the Board of Finance and,
Well, and frankly, the larger town, because you
Well,
guys,
that's what I'm
we
saying,
also
the
get,
community
right?
members, right? I mean, if doing something like that gives people some comfort, then I think it's worth doing. I need to do some research about, I
Well,
think it
this
would be
is, yeah,
important. I mean, there's obviously people that consult on, these kinds of things all the time. And I think there are probably areas of focus, there's someone who goes into a big corporation who's in trouble and does so I need to do some research. I would hope that,
retired school superintendent or something that they, yeah. So I
don't know.
think it's an interesting idea. I don't know what the answer is, but I think you guys are important enough, frankly, that I would use, as I said, I would at least suggest maybe you can raise this at your next board meeting to say,
Yeah.
gee, guys, and
I'm
we
happy.
obviously want to be helpful with it.
I mean, I'm happy to. I will do some research. If anybody has, knows of someone or a firm,
Right.
Well, in
that,
advance, of course,
Well, that's-
might be a possibility.
Yeah.
right, that's a great point, Nancy.
That's
a-
right.
So,
And frankly, as I said to Nancy, it might even be something like, gee, somebody retired last year as a superintendent of schools somewhere who might like an engagement, but I don't know what the answer is, but it's not bad for us to ask the questions.
yeah,
and then-
I agree. I mean,
Okay.
I will do some research and I will bring it up for sure.
Okay.
Can I just ask Jason, would you have, like, where would the cost for something like that come from?
Then we figure it out, because I
Okay.
think it would not be, fair to impose it strictly on you without figuring out how to resource it, okay?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Depending on the quote, I mean,
Right.
you might be able to cover it out of your purchase services.
Yeah,
accounts,
maybe.
whatever.
What is it that you're gonna ask the consultant to do?
well, that's what we're not even at that point yet, but the whole point being
It's
is,
the Board of Ed to
That's
determine that.
but when you look at what's happened in New Fairfield and, Sherman and whatever it is, I want to make sure we're not looking at an iceberg, somewhere down the road. And I don't,
Yeah.
none of us want to be in that position. And that's what we're so proud of what these guys do.
The consultant isn't gonna be able to tell you how the school population is gonna go up or go
Well, no,
down.
but they're going to tell
The
us,
consultant is gonna be a waste of money.
well, no, not necessarily. I mean, by the way, we made it
The
expensive. so much.
consultant who did the enrollment projection for Kent Center, when we renovated it, said that there would be 450 students there right now.
Right, so
So,
we're gonna should get our money back.
he retired, unfortunately.
Look, I'll do the research, I'll bring
Okay.
it to the board and then we can make a decision about whether it makes sense to do it or not. Maybe if it's,
I don't think you should bring it to the board unless you tell us what,
Her board, she said.
Her board.
I don't think you should take it to any board without knowing what it is you want the consultant to consult on.
Well, I-
If you're trying to talk about what the population is gonna be as proven from the past, you're not gonna know. If you wanna have a consultant to tell you how you could cut your expenses, I don't know, or increase, or restructure or.
Well, I
increase-
mean, with our strategic issues, for instance, the fact that we do have this lumpy census versus staffing issue that comes up every year, to the physical plant issues and the money behind that, to frankly, what the needs of this community are. The other thing might be
Yeah.
5 to 10 years out, that just having, some way to raise this and then decide. I don't think that we're talking about, let's go out and just hire somebody to do something we don't know what it is, but I think you gotta start somewhere, at least to ask.
Once you have to start with the Board of Education
Right.
deciding
Right.
what it is they need advice about.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I have a more practical question. Jen, the second attachment that you gave us that showed the class populations,
yeah,
did you, I looked at it quickly, I didn't make a copy of it. Did you also give us the population that we have at the regional high school?
sorry, say that one more time, Casey, did
The
it just
number,
the
the
last?
number, the number of students from Kent.
I didn't ask her for that.
It's on the bottom, isn't it? There's.
It actually went up.
It went to 41.
Could you give us a breakdown of that as well?
I can give you that. I'm sorry. If I missed that, Nancy,
all right.
I apologize. I thought it was,
I think Casey, Sam Herrick sent that to you on October 7th.
Yeah.
Okay.
He sent it to every board
I
of
remember
finance
it
and board
was,
of selectmen member in the region.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean-
Whole region.
The whole region, yeah, a very long list of people.
And
I'm sorry, Jen, we were interrupting you.
I was just gonna say that, yeah, I know it's available now because we use our October 1st numbers kind of as the,
Right.
the standard, so,
Right. Your baseline,
and again, if you don't have that, I can certainly get it. I did not include it in the package I sent you yesterday.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I could only ask for elementary, so.
yeah, but if you could resend it, I wasn't around on October 7th, so I can try to find it, but.
Okay, I will get it to you.
Thank you.
And I have one other request.
Sure.
Would like the board to strongly consider increasing the tuition amount. I don't know any school district that leaves their tuition flat for multiple years in a row.
Tuition.
Okay.
So I would strongly recommend that.
Nancy, I mean, again, I know we've had this discussion so many times, just about tuition in general, but is your request that we consider an increase, kind of a cost of living type increase? Or are you talking about a very meaningful change in the structure to our tuition?
Well, my first choice is an order of magnitude change in how you're doing it. At the very least, at least a cost of living increase.
Yeah. Okay,
Leaving it flat is just crazy.
okay, I mean, point well taken, so, okay.
All right.
Everything else is going up, so I understand the comment.
Anybody else have anything for Jen?
So are you suggesting we look at the information she sent us and talk about it at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Because we're going into that time of year.
Yeah.
Great.
So Nancy, I'll plan to. Do you expect that you'll wanna talk in detail next month about this? Like, should I plan on attending? Will this be on the agenda next month?
If you can, attend the report section and just give us a report, that would be great. I mean, then we can ask you questions and it'll be earlier in the meeting, and especially if you're traveling again.
Okay, okay. All right, anything else for me? Otherwise, I'm gonna duck out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, thank you.
Jen, bye.
All right, bye-bye.
I just sent you guys the email from.
I'm sorry, the meeting isn't done yet. If you just hold off for a second.
I was just letting you guys know that I sent the email forward.
You forwarded it. Thank you.
So you have to
Beg
get
your
your
pardon.
numbers.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
I have a public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would anyone like from the public like to speak?
Yes, I would like to once again ask if you guys would please make use of Google Drive and have your information available to the public prior to your meeting.
If we have it prior to the meeting, we could do that. We don't always have it prior to the meeting.
But I think if you made it more of a goal to do that, it'd be great.
Okay, okay. It will be with the minutes, though. Any of the information we received tonight.
We didn't get the board of ed until.
Now.
I mean, we don't get it, so. Well, she sent it last night. So she said she sent it last night.
I know, but we all have working jobs and, it's tough. It would be tough to do
Who does it
that.
need to be sent to get onto Google Drive?
You're fine, right?
Lynn wants us to use Google Drive.
Yeah, because
And, you know-
you are one of the very few boards that is not making use of that to have.
We are also one of the very few boards that meets in person. I would like, yeah.
I've also asked numerous times to have departments send me digital copies of stuff. And I still wind up leaving meetings with papers and still get sent digital things, so. I can't put stuff in ahead of time, it's not there, I've asked numerous times.
And not everybody is comfortable with Google either. I mean, some people use it, some people have trouble with it, so we can certainly look into it.
Well,
Anything else?
by the, my whole point was, this last discussion was, I want the school, I want the board to basically get comfortable with this notion that, because we have a lot of issues with that they do periodically need to take kind of a deep dive, frankly. And so I'm less worried about who the consultant is or what the consulting engagement is, because we first have to socialize this issue with the board at hearing. And
Yeah.
we got
I
some
think
issues too.
Yeah, I think that's a little too,
Mhm.
I think that that's really more the purview of the board and then the
Exactly.
regional board and the superintendent of schools.
That's right.
Yeah, so, yeah.
But what we know is what we're not seeing, which we would like to see more of,
Right.
so that's kind of,
I'm starving, can we?
Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to then team into the.
Right? Second, great, okay. Great. Thank you all.
Bonnie, can you turn off the recording?